a plot to kill the president of Burkina Faso, a tale of betrayal and survival. It was a moment of celebration in Burkina Faso. President Ibrahim Traoré had just returned from a highly successful diplomatic trip to Russia. His mission had strengthened international relationships, laying the foundation for a future where Burkina Faso could stand independently, free from the grip of foreign control. Across the nation, pride swelled. Under Ibrahim's leadership, change was finally real. Electricity had reached countless homes. Corrupt officials had been removed and imprisoned, and hope was returning to the hearts of the people. As the president descended from the plane, a wave of cheers greeted him. His wife, Sita, was there waiting with open arms. She had been his anchor through every challenge, and their embrace reflected the strength of their bond. However, standing a few feet away was another figure, Isatou, Sita's younger sister, who had recently returned from France. Ibrahim didn't know Isatou very well. She had always been somewhat distant, and her sudden return from Europe now felt oddly timed. When she approached him with a gift, an elegantly wrapped bottle of French perfume, there was a flicker of something in her expression that unsettled him. "A special gift from Paris," she said with a smile. Ibrahim accepted it graciously, but felt uneasy. In his line of work, he had learned to trust his instincts. A gift, especially from someone with unclear loyalties and foreign connections, could be more than it seemed. That perfume bottle, beautiful as it was, gave him pause. Later that evening, alone in his study, Ibrahim placed the perfume bottle on his desk. The amber light of sunset glinted off the glass, but the unease remained. The bottle sat there, almost glowing in the half-light, a silent symbol of something deeper. Isatou's recent return from France, combined with the country's open hostility to his administration, made the gesture even more suspicious. He picked up the bottle and studied it carefully. Its fragrance was potent, almost overpowering. He poured a small amount into a glass and immediately noticed something strange in the scent. It wasn't just floral, it had an acrid chemical edge. Knowing he couldn't dismiss this lightly, Ibrahim contacted a trusted ally, a chemist who had assisted him before in sensitive matters. He handed over the perfume sample for testing and waited in silence, fully aware that the implications of his suspicion were enormous. Several hours later, the chemist returned with chilling news. The perfume was poisoned. It had been laced with a slow-acting, undetectable toxin designed to kill over time. The beautiful gift had been a death trap. Ibrahim's blood ran cold. The realization was devastating. Not only had he narrowly avoided assassination, but the attempt had come from within his own family. His sister-in-law, whether knowingly or manipulated by others, had been the instrument. But it wasn't just personal betrayal. It was political warfare. This wasn't just about him. It was about Burkina Faso's independence. Was Isatou acting alone? Or was she being used by greater powers? Perhaps even the very foreign forces he had spent his presidency trying to keep at bay? France, whose influence he had openly rejected, now stood out as a likely suspect. They had everything to lose from his leadership: control, access, and power over African affairs. What had just happened wasn't a random act. It was a calculated move, likely part of a larger effort to destabilize his presidency and reassert control over Burkina Faso. Ibrahim had survived the attempt, but the battle was far from over. Now more than ever, he understood the stakes. The forces aligned against him were powerful, well-connected, and willing to strike from the shadows. Yet he also knew he had something stronger on his side: the will of the people, and a vision for a truly sovereign Africa. From that day forward, Ibrahim vowed to remain vigilant. His survival had not only exposed a plot, it had revealed just how deeply the resistance to African independence ran, and it had only strengthened his resolve to finish the mission he had started. A deadly betrayal, How Ibrahim Traoré survived and exposed a Western plot against Burkina Faso. President Ibrahim Traoré could no longer carry the burden of the truth alone. The discovery that the perfume gifted to him was laced with poison weighed heavily on him, and he knew that he had to share it with the one person he trusted most, his wife, Sita. He called for a private meeting. When he told her about the assassination attempt and her sister's involvement, her face went pale. Shock, disbelief, and grief swept over her. She struggled to comprehend how her own sister, Isatu, could be involved in such a horrific scheme. As they talked and pieced things together, it became painfully clear Isatu had not acted alone. Ibrahim suspected that powerful foreign interests were behind it, particularly Western nations like France, who stood to lose the most from his presidency. These forces had tried to undermine his government before, and now they had taken their efforts to a new deadly level. Though devastated, Sita remained strong. Her voice steady, she said, "We need to act quickly. The people of Burkina Faso need to know the truth. This cannot be swept under the rug." Ibrahim nodded. She was right. This was not just about defending himself. It was about defending the sovereignty of Burkina Faso and the integrity of its revolution. The attempt on his life was a symbol of the larger battle being waged, an effort to silence a leader who refused to be controlled. But Ibrahim would not be intimidated. The next day, he convened a confidential meeting with his closest advisors. He laid out the details of the assassination attempt and ordered an immediate investigation. Yet he knew that revealing the full scope of the plot would take time. Who were the true masterminds? How far had this conspiracy spread? And most importantly, how? Many others had been compromised? He understood now more than ever that Western powers were watching closely and acting covertly. Their influence had long shaped African politics, and his presidency posed a direct threat to that control. But no matter how sophisticated their tactics, Ibrahim would not be silenced. He had pledged to protect his country, and nothing would stand in the way of that mission. One of the most painful steps he had to take was confronting Isatu. Under questioning, she eventually broke down and confessed. Tears streamed down her face as she sobbed. "I didn't want to. They made me do it. They said they'd ruin everything if I didn't comply." It became clear that Isatu had been manipulated. She was not the mastermind. She was a pawn in a much larger game. She explained that foreign agents had promised her wealth and influence. They convinced her that Ibrahim's leadership was dangerous, that his continued efforts toward independence would ruin any chance of Africa ever being free under their definition of freedom. "They said if you stayed in power," she continued, "Burkina Faso would collapse, that Africa would suffer. They told me you had to be removed." Ibrahim listened carefully. Though anger simmered within him, he remained calm. The betrayal hurt deeply, but he now saw the bigger picture. This was not just about one assassination attempt. It was about a global power struggle, a desperate effort to keep African nations under control through manipulation and fear. The plot to kill him was a message: resist, and you will be destroyed. As the investigation continued, the threads began to connect. Financial trails, secret meetings, and communications with foreign operatives started to surface. Ibrahim's suspicions about France's involvement grew stronger with each passing day. But instead of breaking him, the attack had strengthened his resolve. He was more determined than ever to fight for the dignity, independence, and future of his people. Burkina Faso would not fall. Africa would not be silenced, and the truth, no matter how dangerous, would be brought into the light.